Three people walk into the car market in 2026. All three need basically the same thing: a reliable crossover, enough room for groceries, work, road trips, maybe a couple of kids. Nothing exotic, nothing ridiculous, but they make three completely different decisions. Jake leases new. Marcus finances new. Elena buys used. And if you only look at the monthly payment, Jake looks smart. If you look 5 years ahead, Marcus starts looking smarter. And if you look at depreciation, Elena suddenly enters the conversation. But then something happens. We invest the difference. We add repairs. We add resale value. We add mileage. We add negative equity. We add the possibility that Marcus does what millions of drivers actually do and trades his car before the loan is finished. And by the end, the person with the cheapest monthly payment is not necessarily the person who spent the least. The person who owns the car isn't automatically the winner either. And the biggest financial mistake may not be leasing, or financing, or buying used. It may be something much simpler: restarting the car cycle too often. Because the American car market in 2026 has become extraordinarily good at giving people one thing they want: a payment they can survive this month, and extraordinarily bad at forcing them to ask, what is this car actually going to cost me over the years I really use it? Today, we're going to answer that question. First, understand the market we're dealing with. In July 2026, the average new vehicle transaction price in the United States reached roughly $49,855. A compact SUV, much closer to what our three drivers are shopping for, averaged about $37,745. So we're going to use a $38,000 compact crossover for our example, not because every crossover cost exactly $38,000, but because it gives us a realistic mainstream 2026 case study. Now look at financing. According to Edmunds, in Q2 2026, the average financed new car buyer borrowed about $44,156. Average APR, 7%. Average loan term, just over 70 months. Average monthly payment, a record $777. And nearly 1 out of every financed new car buyer signed a loan lasting 84 months or longer. Think about what that means. The car market isn't solving affordability by making cars dramatically cheaper. It's increasingly solving affordability by stretching the payment. And that distinction matters enormously, because a lower monthly payment is not the same thing as a cheaper car. It's just a different way of distributing the cost. Let's keep the comparison controlled. Jake, Marcus, and Elena each earn $72,000 a year. All three could technically afford to spend more, but all three want to keep the vehicle decision reasonable. They are looking at the same general class of compact crossover. Price new, $38,000. Jake leases. Illustrative lease, $3,000 due at signing, $499 per month, 36 months, 12,000 miles per year. Again, that's an example contract, not the national average. Actual lease programs depend heavily on the manufacturer, residual value, money factor, incentives, location, and credit. Jake likes the deal immediately. Brand new car, warranty, lower monthly payment. In 3 years, he can potentially give the car back and move on. Clean, predictable. Marcus finances the new car. Price, $38,000. Down payment, $5,000. Amount financed, $33,000. At roughly 6.9% APR over 60 months, his payment comes out near $652 a month. That's about $153 more every month than Jake, and Marcus feels every dollar of it. Elena does something completely different. She doesn't buy new. She looks for a 3-year-old version of the same class of vehicle. The broader used market in July 2026 had an average listing price of roughly $27,028, although actual price varies enormously by age, mileage, and model. For our case study, Elena finds a comparable 3-year-old vehicle for $27,000. Now we have 3 strategies. Jake, rent the newest years. Marcus, buy the newest years. Elena, let someone else own the newest years first. And that last distinction is more important than it sounds.
For the first 3 years, Jake is having a great time. His payment? $499. Marcus? $652. Jake saves $153 every month. His vehicle is new. Most major manufacturing defects that qualify under the original warranty are less likely to become large out-of-pocket surprises. He doesn't have to worry about selling an aging vehicle yet, and he knows almost exactly when this chapter ends. This matters because lease critics often make a mistake. They talk as though Jake is paying $499 for nothing. He's not. He's buying something very real. He's buying transportation, a newer vehicle, predictability, access to current technology, and less exposure to certain out-of-warranty repair risks. You may decide those benefits aren't worth the premium, but their value is not zero. That's especially important if Jake has a young family, drives long road trips, knows nothing about mechanical repairs, or simply considers a breakdown far more expensive than the repair bill itself. Maybe losing half a workday matters. Maybe spending Saturday at a mechanic matters. Maybe not getting a call saying the car won't start has value. Finance spreadsheets usually assign all of that a price of $0. Real human beings don't. The advertisement says $499 a month. The contract says much more. Mileage allowance, vehicle condition standards, possible acquisition fees, possible disposition fees, insurance requirements, maintenance obligations, early termination rules. And that means the real question isn't, what's the lease payment? It's, what's the lease payment under the way I actually drive? Suppose Jake's contract includes 12,000 miles per year. That's 36,000 miles over 3 years. If Jake drives 10,000, no problem. If he drives 15,000, now he's potentially thousands of miles over the contract. Depending on the contract, excess mileage charges can materially change the economics. Same with vehicle condition. A major mechanical failure covered by warranty is one thing. Tires, brake wear, scraped wheels, neglected maintenance, or excess damage are another. So leasing doesn't eliminate costs. It changes which costs you own and which risks you transfer. Now Jake's lease ends. This is where the old lease versus buy argument usually becomes too simplistic. People say, Jake returns the car and owns nothing. Maybe, but that's only one possible outcome. Jake needs to look at two numbers. Number one, his contractual buyout or residual value. Number two, what the car is actually worth in the open market. Imagine Jake's residual is $21,000. Now imagine the vehicle's market value is only $18,000. That's great news for Jake. He doesn't have to voluntarily pay $21,000 for an $18,000 car. Subject to his lease terms, he can return it. A substantial chunk of unexpected depreciation has effectively remained with the leasing structure rather than becoming his resale loss. But reverse the numbers. Residual, $21,000. Market value, $24,000. Now Jake may have an attractive buyout. Depending on the contract and current rules, there may also be ways to capture some of that equity through purchase or trade arrangements. This is why a lease isn't simply renting because you're bad with money. Part of what a lease does is establish a future value in advance. In other words, Jake has partially transferred depreciation risk, and in a car market where residual values can surprise everyone, that has value.
Meanwhile, Marcus has been making $652 payments, month after month. By month 60, the loan ends. And this is where buying becomes incredibly powerful. Marcus now owns the vehicle outright. No $652 payment, no lease renewal, no new down payment, no new loan. This is the moment ownership advocates love. And they're right about something important. The cheapest years of Marcus's ownership may be about to begin. Depreciation tends to hurt hardest earlier in a vehicle's life. Later, Marcus may own an older vehicle that still works perfectly well without paying hundreds of dollars every month just for the privilege of having it. This is the finish line. Jake's repeated lease can become a conveyor belt. New contract, new car. New contract, new car. Marcus can step off. Except for one problem. Marcus has to actually step off. Marcus makes payment number 48. The crossover is 4 years old. Still fine. But now a redesigned model arrives. Bigger screen, better driver assistance, better cameras, new interior, maybe better fuel economy. The dealer sends Marcus an email. Upgrade today and keep your payment close to what you're already paying. Marcus looks at his car, then at the new one, and tells himself, I've already built equity. So he trades early. Now the entire logic changes. Because financing only creates the great long-term ownership advantage if you do something very specific. Keep the car after the expensive financing years are over. If Marcus repeatedly finances new, drives 3 or 4 years, and trades, he repeatedly puts himself back into early depreciation, loan interest, dealer transactions, and possibly negative equity. The loan contract isn't the finish line. Your behavior creates the finish line. And this matters enormously in 2026. In Q2 2026, nearly 29.6% of trade-ins used toward new vehicle purchases were underwater. That means the owner owed more on the loan than the vehicle was worth.
Among those underwater trade-ins, the average negative equity was $6,884. Imagine Marcus owes $27,000. Dealer offers $20,000. Difference, $7,000. Marcus doesn't magically erase it. If he trades and rolls that balance into the next loan, he starts financing the new car, plus debt from the old car. Edmunds found that buyers rolling negative equity into new vehicle purchases in Q2 2026 had average payments of $944 per month. The normal new finance average was $777, and projected lifetime interest for the negative equity group averaged more than $16,000. This might be the real car trap, not leasing, not buying. Buying again before you financially finish the previous car. While Jake and Marcus debate leasing versus financing, Elena avoids the argument entirely. She buys the 3-year-old car. Why 3 years? Because she is trying to separate two things: owning a good car from paying for the newest years of that car. The used market isn't cheap in 2026. In fact, average used listings reached about $27,028 in July, roughly 6% higher than a year earlier. Affordable vehicles under $15,000 remain relatively scarce. So the old advice, just buy a cheap used car, isn't as easy as it sounds. But there is still a fundamental advantage Elena is trying to exploit. Someone else has already absorbed some initial depreciation. She doesn't care about new car smell. She cares about service records, vehicle history, reliability, remaining useful life, and purchase price. And there is evidence that more off-lease inventory has been returning to the used market during 2026, potentially improving options for shoppers looking at newer used vehicles. Edmunds has specifically pointed shoppers priced out of new cars toward the used market as off-lease supply improves. But Elena doesn't get a free victory either.
Elena's vehicle is cheaper, but used financing is often considerably more expensive. Edmunds' Q2 2026 average APR. New vehicle, 7.0%. Used vehicle, 10.5%. Experience Q1 data tells a similar story. Average new car interest was 6.39%, while used was 11.43%. So Elena's advantage depends heavily on how she buys. If she has cash or gets competitive credit union financing, the used strategy may look excellent. If she finances almost the entire vehicle at double-digit interest for 6 years, some of the purchase price advantage starts leaking away. She also accepts more mechanical uncertainty. A 3-year-old car can be fantastic, or it can hide poor maintenance, accident repairs, excessive mileage, or problems from the previous owner. So the used car strategy doesn't mean buy anything old. It means buy depreciation carefully. Let's return to Jake. Marcus pays $652. Jake pays $499. Difference, $153 a month. What if Jake invests that money, not hypothetically once, every month, automatically, at an illustrative 7% annual return, not a guaranteed return? $153 invested monthly for 10 years would grow to roughly $26,000. Now Jake's lower monthly payment has created an asset somewhere else. Suddenly the statement, Jake owns nothing, isn't necessarily true. He may not own the car, but he could own investments. This is the strongest argument for leasing combined with disciplined investing. But now we have to be fair to Marcus too. Marcus finishes his loan after 5 years. What if he keeps the car and instead of upgrading, redirects his old $652 payment into investments? That changes the race again. The important lesson isn't lease and invest or buy and invest. It's what do you do with the cash flow after the vehicle decision? Because the spreadsheet assumes discipline. Human behavior often doesn't. Jake may spend the $153. Marcus may buy another car immediately after payoff. Elena may use all her savings to upgrade to a luxury SUV. The best theoretical strategy doesn't matter if you don't actually follow it. Now let's break all 3 plans. Scenario 1, Marcus gets unlucky. Year 6. Transmission problem. Repair, $3,000. Marcus hates it. But here's the key question. Does a $3,000 repair mean the car is financially finished? Not necessarily. If the alternative is another $650, $750, or $900 monthly payment, one major repair can still be cheaper than restarting the new car cycle. The right comparison isn't repair costs $3,000. It's what does replacing the vehicle cost instead? Scenario 2, Elena buys the wrong used car. Previous accident wasn't obvious. Problems show up. $2,500 repair. Then another $1,200 6 months later.
Suddenly, the cheap used car doesn't feel cheap. This is why inspection and vehicle history matter. Used cars shift more reliability risk to the buyer. Scenario 3, Jake drives too much. He planned on 12,000 miles. New job, long commute. Now he's doing 17,000. The contract didn't change. His life did. Lease economics deteriorate. Scenario 4, Marcus has an accident. The car gets repaired, but its resale value falls. His loan balance doesn't automatically fall with it. This can make negative equity worse. In 2026, even models famous for retaining value have appeared among high-volume underwater trade-ins. Edmunds Q2 data included Toyota Camrys, Honda CR-Vs, Toyota Tacomas, and RAV4s among vehicles traded with notable negative equity. This isn't just a bad car problem. It's often a debt timing problem.
Now, imagine Jake knows all of this and still chooses the lease. Is Jake irrational? Not necessarily. Suppose leasing costs him an extra $2,000, $3,000, or $4,000 over several years compared with the cheapest ownership strategy. But in exchange, he receives a newer car, a warranty window, less resale responsibility, less uncertainty, new technology, and predictable replacement cycles. If Jake earns enough, saves for retirement, has no high-interest debt, and consciously chooses to spend more on cars, that's consumption, not necessarily a financial mistake. We routinely pay more for better hotels, better seats, better food, shorter flights, more convenient neighborhoods. Cars aren't magically exempt from that logic. The cheapest option and the best option for your life are not always the same thing. The mistake is paying the premium without realizing you're paying a premium. Now we can finally answer one of the most important objections to traditional lease versus buy comparisons. If Jake gets a new car every 3 years, but Marcus keeps one vehicle for 10, of course Marcus probably looks cheaper. They're buying different lifestyles. So let's make the behavior equal. Jake, lease is new every 3 years. Marcus, finance is new, but also trades every 3 years. Now the result becomes much more interesting. Marcus is repeatedly exposed to early depreciation, loan interest, trade-in spread, and the possibility of being underwater. Jake is repeatedly exposed to lease rent charges, fees, mileage restrictions, and the absence of long-term ownership. Neither has access to the biggest financial advantage of vehicle ownership, years of driving after the payment disappears. This is why asking lease or finance can miss the deeper question. The expensive behavior may simply be always needing a new car. Remember, 23.9% of new vehicle borrowers in Q2 2026 signed loans lasting 84 months or longer. That's 7 years. Imagine financing for 7 years, but wanting a different vehicle after 4. You have combined 2 incompatible behaviors: long debt with short ownership. That's where negative equity can become structurally difficult to escape. A long loan may make the monthly payment look manageable, but you're paying principal down more slowly. The car doesn't care. It keeps aging, it keeps accumulating miles, it can keep depreciating. So when you're offered only $625 a month for 84 months, the right question isn't, can I make $625 work? It's, will I still want this car in year 7? If the truthful answer is no, the monthly payment may be solving the wrong problem. So after everything we've learned, here's what each strategy is really buying. Jake, repeated leasing. He buys newness, predictability, short replacement cycles, less exposure to long-term repair risk. He gives up long-term payment-free ownership, unrestricted mileage, and some flexibility. He may win if the car depreciates unexpectedly hard, he values new vehicles highly, he drives within the contract, or business or tax circumstances genuinely favor leasing.
He takes higher early payments, full depreciation exposure, repair risk later. But if he keeps the vehicle after payoff, he can create something Jake never gets: several years with no loan or lease payment. This is where ownership's biggest advantage lives. Not in year 1, not necessarily in year 3, after the payment ends. She sacrifices brand new experience, some warranty coverage, and some predictability. But she tries to avoid the newest car price premium and some early depreciation. In a market where new cars average nearly $50,000 and used cars average closer to $27,000, the price gap is too large to ignore. But used financing rates and repair risk can materially alter the outcome. There's another piece of 2026 data that tells us something surprising. While almost 30% of trade-ins toward new cars were underwater in Q2, 68.8% of trade-ins carried positive equity. And among those positive equity trade-ins, the average amount reached a record, $13,330. Which vehicles showed up repeatedly among owners with substantial equity? Mainstream vehicles: Honda CR-V, Toyota RAV4, Honda Accord, Honda Civic, Toyota Camry, Subaru Forester, Toyota Highlander. In other words, boring can work. Buy a solid mainstream car, pay the debt down, maintain it, keep it, and eventually the vehicle can become a useful piece of financial flexibility instead of a permanent monthly obligation. That's not exciting, but wealth rarely cares whether the strategy photographs well on Instagram. So forget, is leasing bad? Forget, is buying always smart? Ask 5 better questions. Question 1. How long will I actually keep this vehicle? Not how long should you keep it, how long do you realistically keep cars? If you replace every 3 years, compare lease against finance and trade. Don't compare yourself against a fictional person who owns a Camry for 17 years. Question 2. How many miles will I actually drive? Your commuting habits matter enormously to lease economics and resale value. Question 3. Would I really invest the payment difference? If yes, include it. If not, don't use imaginary investment returns to rationalize more consumption. Question 4. How much is predictability worth to me? If a breakdown ruins your ability to earn income, reliability has unusually high value. If you can fix cars yourself and own a second vehicle, repair risk may cost you much less. Question 5. What kind of vehicle is this? A mainstream vehicle with strong reliability and resale history is one financial conversation. A rapidly depreciating luxury car is another. An EV can be another. A pickup another. A 10-year-old Toyota another. There is no universal depreciation curve, and there is no universal lease versus buy winner.
So, who won? Jake? Marcus? Elena? The answer is, it depends on what happens after the signature. Jake can make leasing surprisingly rational if he values newness, manages mileage, gets a good contract, and invests the money he doesn't spend elsewhere. Marcus can create the strongest long-term ownership outcome if he actually keeps the vehicle after it's paid off. But if Marcus finances for 7 years and trades after 4, he may end up in the worst position of all. And Elena may produce the lowest total cost if she buys the right used vehicle, avoids excessive financing, and keeps it for years. But if she buys someone else's hidden mechanical disaster, the spreadsheet can fall apart quickly. Which brings us to the real lesson. The car industry loves one number: your monthly payment. Because the monthly payment makes an expensive decision feel small. $499, $599, $699, $799. But in 2026, the average financed new vehicle is already costing buyers around $777 every month, and a record share of borrowers are stretching debt 7 years or longer just to keep the monthly number survivable. So the next time someone asks, "What monthly payment are you comfortable with?" don't answer yet. Ask, "What's the actual selling price? What's the APR? How long is the loan? What will I owe in year 3? What might the car be worth? What happens if I drive more? What happens if I want out early? What happens after the warranty expires? And most importantly, how long am I actually going to keep this thing?" Because the real financial advantage doesn't automatically belong to the person who leases, or the person who finances, or the person who buys used. It usually belongs to the person who understands exactly what they're paying for and doesn't restart the most expensive part of the cycle without a very good reason. A car can be transportation. It can be convenience. It can be enjoyment. It can even be a luxury you consciously choose to spend money on. But one thing it should never be is a $50,000 decision disguised as a comfortable monthly payment. And in the 2026 car market, that distinction may be worth more than ever.